Hello and welcome to Legalese. My name is Vincent Perryman. I'm a local attorney with the law offices of J. Vincent Perryman. Each month, Legalese focuses on a wide range of legal issues and topics. Today's show covers mass torts, defective drugs, and medical devices. With us now is Austin Byrd, a local attorney with Bailey & Greer, PLLC. Austin, thanks for being with us today. I know you've been at this for a long time, and I think now you're at Bailey & Greer and have been there basically since March. Just give us a little quick bio on you.
Well, okay. I am at Bailey & Greer right now, and I was brought to the firm to specialize. Actually, specialize is not the right word in Tennessee, but to really focus on mass torts. And a mass tort is something where a single event or a single product can hurt lots and lots of people. So you have lots of potential injuries, but really one similar fact pattern. Prior to coming to Bailey & Greer, I spent many years, at least 7 years, at a local, very large medical device company where I was responsible for product innovation as well as ethics, compliance, and professional affairs. That really relates to how the company, I guess the rules of engagement for how the company marketed, sold products, and also handled its relationships with the healthcare professionals that collaborated with the company. And then prior to that, I was at another large local law firm where I focused primarily on corporate transactions, negotiated transactions, mergers, acquisitions, commercial real estate, and some healthcare law there too.
Okay. So now on mass torts, those are, what is a mass tort really?
Well, like I was saying, a mass tort is going to be, mass torts are going to happen in the context where, let's take a drug for instance. If a drug is put onto the market and has some unknown side effects, and the side effects injure a lot of different people, then it's going to be deemed a mass tort. The mass tort happens or a mass tort action happens when lots of different people file lots of different lawsuits in many different jurisdictions. And what we'll talk about, I think, a little bit later is how the court system effectively deals with essentially the same fact patterns popping up in all over the country.
So now on the mass torts, I guess the starting point with that is we've got government regulations on most of these products that are out there and things like that. So the question would be, there's a process for the product to get from production to the public and certain regulatory steps that it's got to go through?
That's right. And today, you know, we could talk about mass torts in like an airline disaster would be a mass tort. One set of facts hurts a lot of different people. Today, I thought I would focus on pharmaceutical products and medical devices because that's my background. The FDA is the Food and Drug Administration, and in the United States we probably have the best, safest drug supply system in the country. I'm sorry, in the world. A lot of other countries look to the FDA as the benchmark, and if the FDA approves a drug here, then it's automatically going to be available in countries like Costa Rica, for instance. They don't even bother having their own system, I think. That's been true in a number of countries. So although it's a very good system, it's far from perfect. And the reason I say that is because the FDA depends on the pharmaceutical companies or the medical device companies to do the studies that prove whether the product is going to be safe and effective for consumers. So there's a big trust factor there. And as you know, there's a lot of money in drugs and medical devices, and so there's a lot of temptation and opportunity for mischief.
So, okay, so with that, I mean, where does the cause of action come from in a mass tort, I guess?
Well, I think what happens is you have to understand how the drug gets to the consumer in the first place. What happens, and I'll get to your question in just a second, but what happens is the companies start off with laboratory type exercises, petri dishes, and they work on the cellular level. Then they'll do testing on animals, usually small animals, then larger animals, and eventually they get to a process where they get permission to do clinical trials on people. And they'll start with a small group of people, and they'll go to a larger group of people. That's an investigational new drug, because you're not allowed to give a drug to anybody until at least the FDA has said you can do this to a limited group of people to study what happens with the drug. If the drug testing works out well enough, then it will be launched into the general marketplace, and then you have millions of consumers potentially that are taking that drug, and the full array of potential side effects and benefits will become apparent. The problem with some of this is that you don't really know how effective the drug is going to be or what all the side effects are going to be until that major launch. And when I say there's opportunity for mischief, what I mean is that it's true that some drug companies in the past have withheld important information or have manipulated the information they presented to the FDA by minimizing bad side effects or maximizing potential benefits in order to get the drug approved. That's when the real mischief happens, because then the consumers and the physicians that prescribe the drugs don't have a full appreciation of either the bad side effects or the less than touted benefits.
So basically it would be the whole thing of the consumer doesn't understand fully the risk that they're assuming by taking this drug.
That's exactly right. And then you have consumers that experience, and I want to talk about three in particular that our firm is handling and focused on. One is a medical device. It's a pelvic mesh product that's often used for women who have experienced pelvic soft tissue laxity, and so the mesh is used to try to shore up some tissue. It's primarily for organ prolapse or for stress urinary incontinence, and that product's been on the market now for a number of years and is really failing at alarming rates, much worse than was ever anticipated by the FDA back in 2008 when it issued its first kind of advisory. The other two are drugs, Actos and Pradaxa, that we've been looking at, and these have some really unanticipated negative side effects that I don't think the public was made aware of at the time the drugs were put into the marketplace.
Okay. Yeah, and one of these is how would a consumer know whether a drug is or a device is dangerous or controversial in terms of safety and effectiveness?
You know, it's a great question. If a physician prescribes a drug for you and says, you know, I want you to take this pill, I would encourage you to have a longer conversation with that physician. You know, tell me why you're prescribing this pill, and tell me right now about the side effects. Talk to the pharmacist when you get the prescription filled and ask about adverse side effects. Ask if it's a controversial drug. And if you have access to the internet, while that's not a perfect source of information, you certainly should investigate, just by using ordinary search terms, whether that drug is the subject of a lot of controversy, including mass tort actions. And as you've probably seen from television, there are lots and lots of ads out there. You know, if you've taken this drug and you've experienced this problem, give us a call. And we'll talk about how to interact with the legal environment, you know, if you think you've been exposed to a drug that's caused problems that you shouldn't have had or couldn't have anticipated anyway. Just a longer answer is the FDA also has databases that you can log into your computer and look at, and the databases will give you an idea whether there are a lot of adverse events and a lot of adverse reporting. A lot of that reporting is mandatory, and that is our government providing us with that information so we can be smarter consumers.
And of course the trick with these mandatory disclosures like that is you've got to know where to go look for it.
That's right. That's right. There's a MAUD database and several other databases, and the law firms that are investigating the problems with these drugs certainly monitor those databases, and if you have any questions, you can call a lawyer that handles these kinds of actions, and maybe even before taking a drug, you know, check with somebody and say, is this one of these controversial drugs?
Right. Of course, I guess if you are checking with an attorney before you take it, then you may, you can't anticipate being able to litigate if you are going to take that.
Well,
so.
that just almost never happens. What really happens is somebody sees an ad or they have a bad experience, and then they learn, you're right, far too late, that the drug had some problems.
Okay. When we return, we'll continue our discussion more about mass torts. Please stay with us.